platforms. I wrote a tutorial on how to send OBS data to different social media platforms, because the very first thing that we did as a band was try out live streaming on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Instagram, and just trying to figure out which ones are easiest and why. And it kind of devolved into this big tutorial about the software itself. So open broadcasting software is OBS. Basically what that means is that it's a program that houses your audio and video data, whatever you are singing into your microphone or whatever your camera on your computer is picking up. That information is being held in the OBS software, which is like a sound check room. And then when you set it up properly, it sends that information to a social media platform like Facebook or YouTube or Instagram. The reason why I use OBS is because most social media platforms like Facebook and YouTube, the industry is rapidly changing. So that's one thing to note, but a lot of them have a really hard time interpreting more than one thing. So they're speaking platforms is what I like to call them. They can pick up your voice okay, and just like Zoom is picking up my voice all right, if I were to go get my guitar right now and just play straight to you in Zoom, it would have a harder time interpreting those without compressing the guitar and making it turn into background noise, which is what Facebook and YouTube do when you just stream directly into them. They're not built to sustain a musician's platform yet. Some of them are changing, but for the most part, they're not quite there yet. So what OBS does is it overrides that compression that turns your instrument into background noise. It allows you to have control of your sound and your video the way that you want it going out. Other reasons why I use OBS is because you can add multiple cameras to your setup, or you can add logos in the top right-hand corners. You can even do a slideshow. We do a weekly series called 3 for Tea on our Facebook, and I have it going through OBS. I have a slideshow in the top right corner that features all of our sponsors. So we have a bunch of local sponsors on that show, and I'm able to show the logos flashing by as we're playing throughout the entire show because of OBS. It's overwhelming to look at when you first open it up, but it actually is pretty user-friendly over time. I've written a really big tutorial that's really in-depth, and I've also written a smaller tutorial, a quickie guide, as I like to call it, which has simply just how to set up your OBS scene, and then also how to send your OBS show to Facebook. So there's a tutorial that has screenshots that can guide you through that. But I'm going to go ahead. I think Annie is a good time to switch to OBS and just actually show the program. Okay, cool. I will do that. I'm going to share my screen. So this is what it looks like. I have it all set up, but I'm going to make a new scene here. It does look like a lot of information. You can see like there's this audio mixer box, which is picking up my microphone, and sources, which is where my microphone and camera are at, and there's these things called scenes. The very first thing you see usually is this, oh, I'm already using that name, hang on. Test 2. This is usually what you see at the very first thing when you open up OBS. So what you have to do is create your room, your scene. This box in the lower left-hand corner is your scenes, and you can see I just created a new one by clicking the plus sign, and I just typed in my scene title. You can call it whatever you want. I usually call it whatever show I'm doing or whatever social media platform I'm streaming to, just to keep track of what I'm doing where. If I were doing multiple cameras, I'd call it like test camera 2, etc. But this is where you would switch between and do different things, is over in your scenes. So now that we have that set up, you basically have this highlighted. At that point, you go over to the sources box, and this is going to be where you host your camera and your microphone. And so you can see this plus sign is the same as this plus sign over here. You just click add. And the very first thing that we're going to do is add the camera. And this is all in the tutorial, so if I'm going too fast, there is a broken down section by section thing, or just let me know in the chat and I'll go slower. I have a habit of just like shooting forward because I have ADD, but so here's the scenes. You can see I clicked on this. For camera, I'm going to click video capture device because that's going to be what grabs your image. And I've already made one, so I'm just going to call this camera 2, but you would typically call it after whatever camera you have, like a built-in camera on your computer, or if you're using like an external camera on your laptop, you would call it that external camera. Once you've named it, just click OK.
Hey, Sav, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
The pop-up where you're entering this info is not showing on the screen.
Oh, it's not.
No.
Okay, good to know. Let me see if I can change that real fast.
Otherwise, it's great.
Well, let me see if I can screen share more of this. This was working yesterday. I'm kind of sad about it. Here we go. Okay.
Yeah, beautiful.
All right. Let me get out of here. Get out of there. Okay. So, let me just start over then. Oh my gosh. Okay, hang on. So, I'm sharing OBS. When I click add, I am going to click this plus sign and add my video capture device. And then I'm going to quickly jump back to Zoom and make sure I screen share this part. So this pop-up shows up. And this is what you're going to name your camera after. At that point, a new window pops up, which is why I just shut down. And you're going to click on this device button and scroll down to wherever your camera is showing up. If you have a Mac, it's going to look like FaceTime HD camera built in. You're looking for built in because that's what's naturally on your laptop or computer that you're streaming from. You click on that, and then you press OK. And every time I do anything in OBS, it's switching over. So at that point, you see your image, and this camera is in charge of it. The camera that you named is in charge of getting your image on this screen right here. So now you've set up your camera, you simply just to review, you would add video capture device, follow the prompts, press OK, and boom, you have your camera. The same process applies to your audio input capture. So for this is kind of, bear with me here. We've clicked the plus sign, we do audio input capture. And you would name this after whatever microphone you're using. So I'm using the Shure MV51, which is like this little USB microphone plugs into my computer. I'm going to name it Shure MV51. And it pops up with this window. You just scroll down to where it says it and press OK. And you'll see it right there under sources. So you've added your camera and you've added your audio source, and you can see this audio mixer window where I'm talking. There's this little green fader going on. It's just interpreting my signal. That's how you know your microphone is working. You'll typically see this mic/aux. It might be turned up for you. What you want to do is make sure that's turned all the way down. Otherwise, your built-in laptop mic is picking up sound along with your external mic, and you would have like an echo or a delay going on. So you want to make sure that that's turned down. So you've created your sources, you have your camera, you have your microphone. Basically, whatever happens in this big screen, when you start sending data to Facebook or YouTube, is going to be what your audience sees. So if you're like click and drag this, if this is what shows, then people are going to see all this black space around you. You want to make sure that it fills up the whole screen by clicking and dragging one of the corners. From there, one of the most important steps for me, and this is detailed in the mini tutorial I wrote as well, is really easy to miss. I believe you only really have to do it once, but you want to right-click this gear right here and click Advanced Audio Properties. Of course, it's going to make a new pop-up that I'm going to have to share. So you're going to see Advanced Audio Properties. This pop-up pops up. And you want to make sure that mono next to the microphone you're using is checked. You only have to do that once, but the reason why you want to do that is because otherwise it only sends the left ear to people who are listening with headphones. So once you do that, you will share the screen back to OBS again, and that's all that really needs to happen there. You just press OK once you check that box. So now we're sending audio and video to our OBS scene. At this point, to send this to a certain destination. We'll demo YouTube today. We'll make that the thing that we use. So I'm going to share my whole screen at this point. I'm going to go to YouTube. Here we go. I'm going to go to YouTube, and this is where you would set up, this is the very first step of YouTube. You would click on this little video icon at your channel. It says create, and then you would click go live, which takes you to this thing called YouTube Studio. Looks a little crazy, but it's not too bad. What you can do, it's nice about YouTube, is that if you make it a public thing, everybody will be notified on your YouTube channel and they will see your live stream. If you make it unlisted, only people with the link will be able to see your live stream. And if you make it private, only you can see your live stream. So for now, we'll just make this private. We'll call this a test stream. And you can schedule your live streams for later on YouTube, and then just get the information you need later and put it in OBS whenever. But we'll just pretend that we're going live now. Once I have all the information I need in there, I press create stream, which takes me to this window. So one of the most important things about streaming, and this goes for any place that you're trying to stream to, there's this really important password called the stream key, which is right here. The stream key, basically what it is, it's the password that OBS needs to talk to Facebook, to talk to YouTube, to talk to Twitter, wherever you decide to go to. All social medias have a stream key, and it changes every time you do a different show. So the thing about the stream key is that people don't need to log into your Facebook in order to go live from your Facebook if they have the stream key. So you never want to share your stream key with anybody. It's your stream key. It changes every time for security issues mostly. So you want to make sure that you keep that safe and private. You can see that this window right here is sort of buffering. It's waiting for me to do the process of getting the stream key into OBS. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to copy this stream key. It's waiting for me to do that. So just press copy. And then I go back to OBS. I'm going to make sure that y'all can see that, me going back to OBS. I'm going to go back to OBS, and in the top left-hand corner, you'll see the letters OBS next to your Apple signal, or basically the project toolbar up at the top. You're going to click OBS and click Preferences. And of course, that's going to give me a new window. Sorry, guys, bear with me. So this is what's going to pop up when you click OBS and Preferences. This looks like a lot of information, but we're just going to ignore this all. All you really need to do at this point is click on Stream. You can see there's 3 different things here. There's Service, there's Server, and there's Stream Key. All we need to do is change the service to YouTube, because that's where we're streaming from. And there is a default for that. It's right here. So that part's done. And then all you need to do is paste that stream key right there. I will say that these things, these 2 things mostly, are the things that change every time with, depending on what platform you're using. And I've broken down in the bigger tutorial which things require what. Most of the time, what you really need to worry about is your audio bitrate. The standard is 128 for audio bitrate, but again, this stuff, for the most part, it doesn't really matter. It's just good to know the standard numbers. And keep in mind that if you have an older computer that's having kind of a hard time with this, the lower that these numbers are, the better. So for instance, if you have an old computer, I usually set the video bitrate for 1500 and the audio bitrate for 128. This is probably going to be unchecked for you when you first go in. You're going to want to check it. And then you want to uncheck enforce streaming service bit rates, because otherwise that kind of defeats the purpose. It lets Facebook compress your sound again. There's no point in using OBS. It's just, so you make sure that's unchecked. And then you go to video and you'd set your resolution. Basically, this just shows how big is the video coming in. This is the standard right here. And common FPS values 30 is typically the standard. But again, none of that really matters. too much, and there's broken down numbers exactly given in the big tutorial for OBS. The really big thing you need to worry about is getting the stream key from YouTube, which we copied into the stream key slot of OBS, which again, you can do by going to OBS, preferences, and then stream. And I click OK. And then I share it back to OBS again, because this is super annoying. Cool. So at that point, when I click start streaming, it's going to start sending everything that I have set up, the camera and the microphone, it's going to send that to YouTube. And it won't go live immediately. You're just sending data to YouTube, and only YouTube can make it go live. So I'm going to click start streaming. It's doing it right now. I'm going to share YouTube, and it'll show up in just a second on YouTube. Yeah, it takes a second just because there's usually about a minute-long delay, but you can see my preview screen. It's specifically labeled preview, so nobody else can see this but me. And when I'm ready to go live, I'll press this go live button. And that's pretty much it. Usually you can sound check by unmuting right here. And I can hear myself, you can't hear me, but I can tell it's working because I unmuted the video in this section and I heard myself talking. So if I'm too loud, I can double check and make sure how much I need to turn it up or down just by clicking on this unmute. So I'm going to stop streaming this and I'll stop screen sharing. Actually, I'll screen share back to OBS and talk a little bit more about stuff you can do with that. So let me get reoriented here. Back in OBS. Okay. So there's some other functions that you can do. You notice that the sources list is huge, right? There's lots of different things you can do. One thing that I do for logos is I add an image and I add my logo to the top right corner of the screen, or top left rather. And you can do that. I'm going to screen share the pop-up that just happened here. You can do that by adding image. And then you browse, which takes you to whatever you want on your computer. Basically, you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm just going through my desktop or my downloads and selecting an image that I already have. See, you can see my logo here. You can see that I got it from my desktop. I had it saved, and I press OK. And when I press OK, it pops up. Uh-oh, hang on. It says my shared window is paused. Let me go back. Okay, so you can see that the logo is here. I just need to click and drag the edge to make it bigger or smaller. And then I can even move it up or down by clicking on it and put it where I want it. So that just shows up. You can see Accidental's logo is now on my sources. And again, all I did to do that was click on add an image and then follow the prompts and found the file that I wanted. Another thing that you can do, and this is kind of getting a little crazy, but you can add a virtual tip jar through this thing called Streamlabs. And I saw a comment from a couple weeks ago saying Streamlabs is hard to use. Just to clarify, Streamlabs it has an OBS function. I don't recommend it. I recommend just using simple OBS Studio because that's worked time and time again for me. It's user-friendly. You know, it's just comfortable for me, but it really is about what's comfortable for you. And you can try a couple different things, and if none of them really seem for you, there's other broadcasting studios that you can use that are way more, they're more in charge of the sound and the video. So like StreamYard's a great one. Restream does the same thing. All of them are broadcasting studios. This is just one of them. So yeah, like I said, you could add a virtual tip jar by going to StreamYard or Streamlabs and logging into that. And I will go ahead and screen share what I'm doing for that. Here we go. Let me make sure this is how we're doing it. There we go. Okay, so you should be able to see me going to Streamlabs. You just need to log into this. It's free. You would log into it via like your YouTube or Facebook. It prompts you and it's like, do you want to use YouTube or Facebook? Where are you trying to stream to? And usually I just use YouTube. You can use it with whatever. But once I'm logged in, I'm going to go down to this thing called donation history. In fact, one of the first things it does is prompt you to enter your PayPal information. because what it does is it takes all the tips that come in and puts them directly into your PayPal. So just to clarify, you're logging into Streamlabs via your YouTube, and then it asks, hey, what's your PayPal information? You enter your PayPal email address, and it gives you this little link. So whenever people click on this link, they'll be able to donate. This is typically the link I put in like our Facebook description when I go live or something. To the side, you'll see this button that says all widgets. I click on that and I scroll down, having issues scrolling down today. Scroll down to this thing called the jar. So this is the tip jar, the virtual tip jar that I was talking about. You can add whatever shape of jar you want here. It's kind of hilarious. And the big thing that you want to do is this is your widget URL. You're going to copy this. And now I'm going to take you guys back to my OBS because that's once I have that copied, I need to go back to OBS. We always add from the sources. If we want to add something to this screen right here, you always add from sources. So I click this plus button and I scroll up to where it says browser, because we're entering a link and a browser is a link. I'm just going to call it tip jar just to make things less confusing, and press OK. And then let me go ahead and make sure you guys can see the pop-up that happens after that. So this is what shows up. We're just going to delete this URL and paste the one that we copied. Press OK. And then I'll take you back to what happened in OBS. You can see this jar now is showing up. So you can make it smaller and put it right here. And then going back to Streamlabs after I've done this. There we go. I'm going to scroll down to where it says test tips and donations. And this is going to be kind of tricky, but once I do that, now I'm going to screen share with y'all what happens in OBS. You can see that it's testing that it's dropping donations from the top, and it also broadcasts the name of whoever donated as it does so. And this just happens as long as you put the link that you got from your Streamlabs webpage, which going back to that, to find it, you would go to donation history and then scroll up and copy this link. So anybody who clicks on this link can donate, and when they donate, it'll pop up in your tip jar dropping the donations in there. So those are like just a couple things that you can do in OBS specifically. I recommend it for, like, I have kind of a pros and cons list as to why you would use OBS over something like Streamlabs or StreamYard. And I think the thing for OBS is that if you're trying to do a show with just you in one room, and you're trying to get really good audio, trying to get like this tip jar function or this logo function, or just make it look really nice and make it sound really nice, I recommend OBS, just because it does most of the work of making sure that Facebook doesn't squash your sound. A lot of venues are really hesitant to hand over basically the keys to the sound because there's no guarantee that it's going to sound good. So OBS does a really good job of kind of making sure that it gets rid of all that compression that might happen. It overrides it. But if you're trying to do like a show in the round, which I've done to Crowdcast, I've done this thing called StreamYard. I think there was a tutorial about it a couple weeks ago. StreamYard's also a free program to an extent. It's got like a plan system depending on what you're trying to do. But if you wanted to, for instance, do a show in the round with like 3 other people, and you wanted to send that show to like a paywall, like to a ticketed link, we've sent StreamYard to Crowdcast, and people buy tickets on Crowdcast and they can see the show that you're kind of hosting in StreamYard, similar to the way that you would host your sound check in OBS. They're the same thing. OBS and StreamYard are similar. It's just with StreamYard, you can add more people, and it has a different setup process. It's way less intensive than OBS. I just want to address like a couple more things, and then I think I'm going to hand it over to Annie. But there was a question about loopback, or sorry, it was about Soundflower. And this is getting kind of intensive, but this is for people who are really proficient in using like a DAW, like Logic or Pro Tools or GarageBand, and are trying to get those effects to show up in Facebook. Like you want that reverb, you want that EQ that you have in Logic that you've been using for years. There's a couple ways to do it, but if you want to do it all on one computer, like your Logic program, your your effect unit in Logic on your computer, you would download a program called Loopback. It used to be Soundflower. Soundflower has now been killed. It's Loopback now, and Loopback costs $100. So there's the pros and cons of it, but when you use Loopback, I do have a setup process in the big tutorial over OBS on how to set that up and how to get your reverbs showing up on the other end of your live stream. And so that is an option for you, but Soundflower is officially, it's been eradicated. I tried using it and it was like, use Loopback. I'm like, dang it. So that's just the reality of that situation. And I think that's all I had. I know that there's going to be more questions about, can you do this through OBS? So I think instead of trying to assume what those might be, I'm going to stop screen sharing and let Annie take over. I can't hear you yet.
There we go. I got you back. Hi.
Cool.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, first of all, that was all phenomenal. I actually understood everything you just said.
Oh, good. Oh my gosh, I'm so worried. I'm like, this is a lot of information.
That was really, really, really great. And I think you did just enough of like sort of a little bit moving ahead of people that are just getting the basics, but we got the basics as well. So thank you so much for that. The one thing that I thought maybe would be helpful from my perspective, first of all, I'm going to just encourage people to raise hands or ask questions. And especially some of you are putting your questions in chat, and I promise that I will ask them. I'm looking up because you're on a monitor above me. But I would love for you to vocalize your questions as well. So I'm going to give people a chance to think about what their questions might be and raise their hand. And then, but I have a question about multiple cameras, and I think that did come up as well. And you know, I saw you shrinking your picture, and I wondered if like you can have multiple cameras shrinked around on that. Like, could you do a sort of a demo of that?
Yes, I can give that a shot.
Back to the screen sharing. You were cracking me up. Girl.
Back to the screen sharing. I'm so sorry. I had no idea it would pop up different pop-ups every time I do that. I wish that wasn't the case, but so here we go. So one thing that I've done in the past is I'm going to delete all this because this is all very confusing if you're just seeing a bunch of stuff. So, for instance, like I said, I have that show called 3 for Tea. This is typically what it looks like. I use my iPhone as a camera, which isn't plugged in, so right now it's just a black screen. But usually my iPhone camera is showing my face right now. So here, I'll just add myself to make that less confusing. Video capture device, we already have it. It's camera. All right, so this is what it looks like. And then before the show starts, I usually like to go live about 5 minutes early, and I don't want them seeing me like running around being dumb. So I did this thing. I created a pre-show picture in Canva. I gave it the dimensions, and I just created a picture saying, hey, we're going to go live in 5 minutes. This is what it looks like. Nope, it does not look like that. Hang on. I think I need to move it to the top. Hang on. See here. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so this is what it looks like ahead of the show. I go live, I have it on the screen, and this is what people see. If you don't want them to hear you, just get rid of your audio source like this, and only have the only source in there would be your photo of 3 for Tea, or whatever photo you make to pre-show your screen ahead of time. And the way that you do that is creating another scene, which, yeah, pretty much, let's just say I wanted to do a 3 for Tea pre-show screen. I would press that little plus sign under scenes and press OK. And then, just like always, trusty sources box, you add, and then you add an image. You can't see the pop-up, but basically you'd follow the prompts and find it in your desktop, like this downloaded picture that you have, and press OK. And when you press OK, it'll pop up and you can click and drag and move it around. So that's one way to do it. I've done workshops for kids in the past with Crowdcast, and this is crazy, but we had one camera just showing my face like this, and then, like I said, you can use an iPhone as a camera with a proper plugin, which is detailed in the big tutorial I have under like how to use an iPhone with OBS. So what we had was we had one scene just showing my face from my laptop camera, and then another scene had the iPhone camera. And when we wanted to use our iPhone to show the pedal boards, I just clicked to a different scene with the iPhone camera hooked up, and it would go like it was like a GoPro showing like the pedal boards and how they worked, and kids were super into it. So that's one way to do it. What you were talking about, Annie, was adding like adding multiple cameras in one setting. And I'm curious. I think this is how I did it, but it's been so long I honestly can't remember. Basically what we're doing, what we're going to try is to add multiple video capture devices here. And clicking and dragging. So this is how I started. I click and drag it, and then I click the source again, and I do a video capture device. And let's just say you had like an external camera hooked up, and you wanted like a different angle of yourself showing over here, or you wanted an angle of your bandmate over there. For instance, let's just pretend that's the case. You would just click on sources again, you click on video capture again, and you do like angle 2, and press OK. You can't see this pop up. I'm going to share the screen again just to make it familiar. I think I shared it. Hang on.
Yeah, it's good. Let me see it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you see this pop up, and you would scroll down to the device that you want to use. If you have an external camera, like a secondary camera plugged in, you click that, press OK. Dang it. Screen share thing is so annoying. Back to OBS, you click and drag it. And you can see there's 2 of me now. Boom! But just pretend they're like 2 different cameras, and then it would be simultaneously happening. You could just like make it however you want it to look.
Nice.
As far as having guests, I don't recommend doing it in OBS because there's not really a way to do it that makes a bunch of sense. Like there's a way to do it. It's through NDI, which is Network Device Interface. You can find that under sources. But in the past, when I've used NDI, I'm able to like capture the screen from like a Zoom call. That's how I would do this. Or I'd capture the screen from like a Skype call with 4 other people and capture their particular screen. And that's detailed in the big tutorial. But the problem is I haven't figured out a way to manage the audio. There was a massive echo. Even though all of us were wearing headphones, there was a massive echo throughout all of them. So I stopped trying to do that in OBS. It's just too much of a headache to try and get multiple guests on in OBS. Usually, if I want like a guest in the round thing, StreamYard is the way to go. It's so much easier. Not everybody has to have a StreamYard account to use StreamYard. They can just be invited in by the link. You would have to host it, but nobody else who you invite has to have a StreamYard account. They would just join. You would set up their sound. That's detailed in a different tutorial I wrote. And boom, you'd be in business. So.
Awesome.
Stop spirit.
Yeah, we'll make sure to share those links with everybody. I'm going to escape to sign in, but I'm monitoring right now the chat. So let's take a live question from the studio audience, if we will. Mr. Jewel Yulvin, always good to see you, sir. And I am going to ask you to unmute yourself now and put the spotlight on you, my friend. Ask your questions, sir. Oh, we can't hear you. Try again. Oh. Uh-oh. It says you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. Shoot. Can you type your question?
Oh.
It's nice to see you anyway. All right. Miss Sue Fink, I am unmuting you. Hello. Why can't we hear you either?
She's still muted.
Oh. You're still muted.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on.
It says she's still muted.
All right, try now.
Oh, can I?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Hey,
My bad. Maybe that was my bad on Jewel, too.
this is, I'll just get rid of this message. That was just really helpful. I understood at least part of what you said, which is way more than before. So I feel
I'm
like
so
each
glad.
time I'm learning a little more. But when you said Streamlabs and you were doing the tip jar, and then you were talking about StreamYard, and
Yes.
I think I've seen shows with StreamYard. Anyhow, my brain exploded at that
Yeah.
point. And so I'm just, Streamlabs is not a broadcasting system like, no.
It has a way to do that. It's called Streamlabs OBS. So it's like a branch off of OBS that Streamlabs created and partnered with OBS to do. I don't like it. I don't like it. I use OBS Studio, which you can download. I can provide a link to it, but there's a link in the big tutorial I wrote on where to download it.
Well, so what you were doing with that little tip jar and then you were copying it from one thing to the other, was that was from Streamlabs?
Streamlabs did that. So they have integrations. They have like ways of talking to OBS. And the way that you would do that is, again, in OBS under that sources box, you would just add browser. And then in Streamlabs, you would find the tip jar, copy the link, and put it in the browser source of OBS. That's how you would do that. You don't need to have Streamlabs OBS downloaded or anything. You just need to log in and give it like wherever you're broadcasting to, you give it like your YouTube information and your PayPal information, and that's how they talk.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm so sorry. I don't know why they're naming all these things Stream something. Like StreamYard and Streamlabs are totally two different things. StreamYard is a broadcasting. So I like to break it down into groups. Like some programs are specifically broadcasting, like OBS. Some programs are specifically communication, like Zoom. And then there's hybrids like StreamYard that allows you to communicate with other people like a Skype call and broadcast it in a way with good audio. So that's how I like to think of it. That's how I like to split them up in 3 categories.
And would you ever use OBS with Zoom? Is there ever any reason to do that?
There's not a way to do that because there's this thing called RTMP Studio. You're going to see that pop up over and over again. I need to look up what RTMP stands for. I've been so used to just like reading it on a screen being like, I know what that is. But basically what it is it's implying like, this is where you're going to get your stream key. This is where you're going to get that password. Zoom doesn't give you that password. They don't give that password for anything. They can broadcast to Facebook. So Facebook can give you that password that Zoom needs, but it's not like Zoom doesn't provide a password for me to use OBS with it.
Got it.
So that's the unfortunate reality of it. But with Zoom, you can like do a concert like how we're doing right now. We could technically broadcast this whole panel to Facebook from Zoom. I just can't broadcast like Zoom to OBS.
Got it.
Couldn't do that.
Thank you.
They're going to figure that out, I'll bet. So I'm going to take you to a question that we got early on. Is there any reason why you wouldn't click mono for all the audio devices? And I think when you were demoing, there might have been more than one audio device. Yeah.
There was more than one audio device. The reason why you wouldn't is because you're not using all those audio devices. You're only using one. So we're not using that built-in microphone. Please, God, no, we're not using that built-in microphone. It sounds so bad. We're just using the microphone that you have plugged in. I was going to talk about this actually because it's super important. I think the most important gear that you could possibly need to live stream is either like a little 2-channel interface for your microphone and your guitar, or just a USB microphone. And I gotta make that work again. Like a Shure MV51 USB microphone. Lots of people are just using this one microphone and getting the sound that they need. You can like unscrew the back. Right now it's being a desktop thing, but you can unscrew the back and put it on a mic stand and just sing into it like that. It's got multiple touchscreen functions. It's really amazing and I recommend it. But you need either a USB microphone or an interface, and those will show up under your audio sources, and you only want one audio source working at a time. Otherwise, you're going to get the echo of both of them getting your voice at the same time. You want one of them turned down and only one of them turned up. So only one of them sending mono.
Nice. I thought I heard a question about audio, about having multiple. So if you have separate, like if you have multiple channel interface, that's still just one audio input right into that. So that's,
Yep.
if you want more than one audio input. Sorry, I don't mean to answer your question for you. I was just thinking it out, thinking through it because we've done this. So yeah, so it's a difference between, it's the input that you're giving OBS. So
Yeah,
that,
OBS can't mix your audio for you. The only thing that you can really do is make sure that it's not sending only the left ear. But if you want like, oh boy, my guitar's too hot, my vocal's too soft, that's all interface. That's all interface, and like how far away you are from the microphone, and the way that you can sound check is how I was showing you in YouTube. You send it to your preview stream and you listen to it there and make sure, okay, my guitar sounds way too loud. I got to turn it down on my interface, or I got to back away from the microphone here. That's the best way to sound check right now.
Yep.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, sorry, just to touch on that, what you hear is not always what they hear. So I highly recommend sound checking to a preview screen in Facebook or to a preview screen in YouTube and listening to that, because I've had plenty of times where I think my audio is working and I think it sounds fine, and it sounds massively compressed because I clicked the wrong button and didn't know because I didn't double check. So do that. Anyway, sorry to interrupt, Danny.
No. Test, test, test. I love that. You cannot remind that enough. Okay, so Jack Williams is asking, have you run into the problem of YouTube shutting, this is a little off scope, but it's okay, shutting you down if you're playing copyrighted and you're collecting money?
Yeah, I've had that with Facebook. Usually Facebook just mutes the first section of your video. With YouTube, I haven't had a problem, but I also stopped doing it really early on because I noticed it was a problem. So typically I either play my own music, which I have better control over, but there's been issues with that in the past too. Just the copyright thing is so annoying. I honestly get lucky sometimes, and other times I don't. But I think even as simple as having some pre-show screen showing like, hey, we're going live in like 5 minutes, or hey, we're going live at 7 p.m. and then starting the show ahead of time, just to see that pre-show screen implies that like, all right, they're going to go live pretty soon. We'll stick around and wait for that to happen.
Yeah. Somebody was asking about a screen. I'm trying to go in order, so I should not jump ahead. But David Hagen had 2 questions. And David, I think maybe one of your questions was answered with the demo for the welcome screen. But you asked about tips being added as text, links being added as text.
Yeah. The way that I've done, so for instance, right now we're trying to do this big Get Out the Vote campaign because the primaries are happening August 4th. And so the deadline to register to vote was yesterday. I've been kind of insane about it. But what we wanted to do is add a link just showing in text at the bottom of the OBS screen saying, hey, are you registered to vote? Register at mobthevote.org. And the way that I did that was I went to Canva. I just typed the text that I wanted, and then I downloaded it by checking the transparent background. So now it just shows up as text without this big white space behind it. It just shows up as like the logo that I did earlier with the accidentals has a transparent background. And then I just added it as an image in OBS sources, that magic source box that provides every ounce of goodness that we have in OBS. Yeah.
But is it clickable, or is it just a...
Not clickable.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm working on a way to make something clickable. I think you could do it with browser, but I think it's also hard because when you click on a video in Facebook or YouTube, it pauses it. So it's hard to do that with YouTube. I know you can add like ads where if you click on it, it will take you to whatever tip jar you're trying to do, but you have to do that in YouTube itself. Add it like a card is what they call it. And I think you can only add it once the video is done.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
You
but
can
I'll double check.
Put it in the text under your video in your description and make sure
That's what I do.
That's
I just tell people it's in the description of the video. Like if I'm live, I'm like, hey, if you guys are feeling like, hold your feelings and put them in the tip jar, like click on the link in the description, and it's easy as that.
Beautiful. Okay, so is it possible to integrate a remote source, Skype feed, etc., into your OBS stream?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about with that network device interface, NDI, which you can see NDI. When you click on that plus sign in the sources box of OBS, you'll see the NDI option. And there's a way to do it in that OBS tutorial. It's been forever since I did it because I'm permanently scarred by that echo that went around when I added people in. But there's a way to do it. And there's also this thing called Virtual Cam, which is an OBS plugin, but I am unable to use it or learn about it because it requires a Windows computer, and I only have Macs in this house. So Virtual Cam would be the way to do it. I'm every single day I Google whether or not there's a Mac equivalent for Virtual Cam yet, and there just isn't right now. But like I said, the industry changes every day. Even Crowdcast is they offer a new feature now saying, hey, we have professional studio sound in Crowdcast now. So now I got to go test that out, Like it just changes all the time, and I think this is going to be the way that things move forward for a while. So it's good to know the basics. And I was also going to mention that if you don't feel super confident about this. There is a streaming engineer market opening up for people to run your show remotely from wherever they are. They can do that, and they can also set up your OBS screen by downloading an app. You both download an app called TeamViewer, and it allows them access to your screen and to your stuff, and they can set everything up for you. So I encountered that recently. I was working with a show called Common Fence Music out in Rhode Island, and the engineer just had me download TeamViewer. He set up my OBS preferences the way he wanted them, and he told me how to do it, and I just start streaming when I wanted to go live. That's it. So
Nice. I know there's a few people in the audience today that would make really great. I won't name any names, Eric, Dennis. Let's go back to the studio audience with a raised hand from Chris Falillo. Sir, I am hoping that you are able to unmute yourself.
Okay. Am I live?
Like you are live. Go, sir.
Okay. Great tutorial. I'm fairly knowledgeable about OBS, but I'm still learning.
yeah.
So right now I am doing a tour that actually is a virtual tour with 2 performers in separate locations. We're using StreamYard as the platform, but we're having audio issues.
Gotcha.
One of the performers is narrative. I do music and conversation, but when we do the music, we have that overcompression kicking in.
Okay. The first question I would ask you is, have you disabled the audio processing
Therein
in
lies the
StreamYard?
problem. If I disable the audio processing on my end, we get that dreaded echo circle that you talk about. I don't hear it, but they hear it.
So everybody has disabled audio processing on. Is that or
They
just
all
you?
have theirs on, except for me. There's a total of 3.
Everybody's got to have that checked, first off. Everybody's got to have disabled audio processing checked.
Okay, but won't we get bigger issues then? Because it's essentially...
No, it's just this. It's audio processing applies to everybody's individual audio, not to the overall audio. So if they're talking and they're getting compression, that's because they haven't disabled the audio processing in their particular setup. So everybody has to do it. And then the other thing I recommend to get rid of some of the echo is, I should ask actually, is everybody wearing headphones?
No, it's a theater piece, so we are one of the people's in character. I'm myself, but I am not wearing headphones at this point. I believe they still get an echo when I wear headphones. I'm not entirely sure. We only tried it one time.
Yeah. Okay. StreamYard kind of has that weirdness to it in general. It's a combination of not having headphones, how hot is the volume for all 3 of you, and also the disabled audio processing thing. And that's all. I can do an individual thing with you if you want and walk you through it. And I have a StreamYard tutorial as well. That's like
That'd
a
be
quick
great.
guide, but yeah.
Would love to do that. The other question was, can I run my feed through OBS before I process it and send it to StreamYard? I know I had tried to approach StreamYard about that, and it's always done through a chat, and they were not very communicative about it. But that would eliminate the issues of overcompression on
Yeah.
me, really the only place it really happens.
So I've talked to StreamYard about this in the past, and they told me that there's a way to integrate with OBS, but it is a virtual cam Windows thing. So I've been unable to use it. And also, there's this thing, it's always tripping me up, but there's a thing about capturing video sources and capturing audio sources. Not every plugin does both. In fact, with Mac, it's very rare that you'll find one that captures the audio source. Most of the time, they're just capturing video. With StreamYard, I try not to make it talk to OBS because it just leads to more glitching and problems. Typically, I'm about to do a show with 9 other people on Thursday. And the way that I do that is I make sure that everybody's got their interface or their external microphone set up. Everybody's wearing headphones. Absolutely everybody's wearing headphones. And then I mute whoever is not performing. And that gets rid of the echo.
That was one possibility.
Yep.
I could perhaps wear a headphone or an earbud, but the other actor is interpreting Abraham Lincoln. That would be problematic.
Sounds like you guys might have to have a after school chat. So
Sorry, Chris. Because I don't want to hog up all the time here.
It's cool. We've got a lot of questions still, and I think we'll run a little over. So hopefully
That's
that's
fine.
cool. Thanks, Chris. Jewel, let's try you again, my friend. I'm going to see if you can unmute yourself before I put the spotlight. Say a word. No. You're just really quiet. Can you turn up a little?
Hang on.
Mm-mm.
Want to say a couple words? Well, doggone it. I'm sorry. Smitty tried to blame it on me, so I thought I'd try you again. All right. Let's see. Mark Smith, my friend, I'm going to spotlight you. See if we can get you to unmute. I thought I spotlighted you. Okay, things aren't working on my end so good. Hang on.
Sorry.
Spotlight video. Jewel won't go away. Aw. I'm gonna spotlight Sav. Oh, it's because Sav's still spotlighted. That's my problem. Hang on.
Okay.
Nope, stuck. Everybody click on gallery view real quick and we'll wave to each other.
There we go.
Spotlight video. All right, I don't know why that's not working. Mark, it's not letting me spotlight you, hon. So you want to ask your question? Are you there? You're unmuted, sir. Mark? Hello? Okay. Moving on. Is it possible? We already asked that question. David also asked, could you have a scene for welcome screen and transition as you are set?
Yeah.
I think you showed a welcome screen, but it looked like you had deleted your performance scene, and I didn't know if, so maybe I missed that. Okay.
Let me share screen one more time and just show how we're doing this. So here's my pre-show screen. The moment I'm ready to go live, I just click on the other scene. The moment I'm ready to go live, I just, yeah.
But you have to click it.
Got that nice little fade to be like, hey, yeah, you have to click it.
Cool. What mixer do you recommend to input into OBS? A podcast mixer, for instance?
Any interface is fine. I typically use any Roland interfaces. Those are pretty good. And it really just depends on what you're trying to do. Like, if you have a full band, you're going to need as many channels as possible. For instance, I have a full band, so we use like an 8-channel interface and we pare down. So just depends on how much sound you're trying to get in.
Nice. Does OBS have a countdown function?
OBS have a countdown function? I don't believe it does. I haven't found one yet, but I'll look into that. Countdown function.
And I know the answer to this question. Can OBS stream to YouTube and Facebook simultaneously?
Cannot, but StreamYard can, depending on your plan. StreamYard is free for a limited time. I believe it only allows you to stream to one place. Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't speak for me, but higher plans allow you to stream to more than one place. So you can stream to Facebook and YouTube at the same time. The nice thing about StreamYard is also when you're in your broadcast studio, you'll see a comment section. And if you are broadcasting to Facebook and YouTube at the same time, all the comments get looped into that comment section. You can see all of them come in. So that's pretty sweet.
Cool. Well, I just have to throw this out there. Ralston answered your RTMP question. It's real-time messaging protocol.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, basically all it means is that it hosts a studio that will allow a server URL and a stream key. Most importantly, the stream key, it gives you a stream key. So Crowdcast has an RTMP function that allows for StreamYard to take the stream key from Crowdcast. And I did want to talk a little bit about that just because Crowdcast, you can do it with OBS too, but Crowdcast provides a paywall function. So instead of just streaming for free to Facebook and YouTube all the time, what we've switched over to is streaming to Crowdcast. And whatever event you make, you can set a payment limit. You can make a sliding scale or a fixed ticket price. It integrates with Patreon really well. Or you can make it so anybody can view it. And the way that people can view the Crowdcast event is by paying the ticket and registering with their email address and then providing where they live. So what that gives you is a email list, which you can export when the show's done and add to your newsletter. But it also allows you to like actually get monetary profit from people buying tickets to see your online show. And you can broadcast OBS or StreamYard or whatever RTMP server there is to Crowdcast is the RTMP server. Whatever broadcasting studio you want to send the show to, it can go to Crowdcast for a paywall. And the whatever ticket you have also serves as the ticket link. Like whatever event link it is the ticket link itself. So it's all in one spot. Super easy.
Nice. Nice. Okay, so there's a couple of comments in here that are interesting, I think. So Mark Smith, who we couldn't hear earlier, was asking, are stereo mics supported?
Stereo mics supported.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Me either. I think, like I said, OBS does not mix for you. It's whatever you plug into your interface is what you get. Like I typically name my audio source after my interface, not after any specific microphones, just because whatever you're giving OBS in your interface is exactly what you're gonna get. So you have to control your volumes through your interface. You have to control your inputs to the interface. Like that's pretty much it. It just takes whatever information you're giving it to the interface at face value as like one entity. So that's, yeah, I think that's how I would answer that question. I'm not quite sure what, yeah, it doesn't really matter what microphone you're plugging in. It's just going to take it at face value unless you make the settings different on your actual microphone or interface.
Cool. Okay, so we are definitely at the point where we got to start looking at maybe our last couple questions. Eric Bassi, I see you. Let's unmute yourself, my friend.
Hello.
Hi.
So,
Let me follow you.
you hearing me? Yes. Okay. So I just had a quick question about OBS audio mixing. I noticed I'm looking at version 23 on my machine. I noticed you have version 24. There is a little tab at the bottom that says mixer, and it lists the audio sources.
Yep.
And under each one is a little slider to control the level on that with a little speaker button that mutes it. So you're saying don't use that because the performance of that versus an external device is just so relatively poor that it's not worth it?
I'm saying that, I mean, yeah, essentially yes, but what basically is happening there is that it's not going to interpret. If you're plugging two different microphones into your interface, OBS is not going to be like, oh, there's two microphones there. It's just going to be like, there's one interface. So if you want to adjust the volumes on your microphones, your separate microphones or your levels, it's going to happen on your interface. It's not going to happen in OBS. And if you, yeah, like all that's available, the scrolling back and forth in OBS. Here, I'll show just what we're talking about here. This audio mixer window. Let me find the one that, here we go. This audio mixer window is going to have this little sliding thing back and forth, and it does control your levels here. But I would just make sure that you're not peaking past this point, this red, because that will be distorting in whatever you're getting. So you can rely on that bar to make sure that you're not peaking, but you want to adjust your audio settings and your volume on your interface itself.
Okay, so that's just if you have multiple actual physical connections to the computer from different audio sources, you can use that. But if you'll get better control by using a small mixer and plugging everything into that and sending one signal to the computer.
100%. And sound checking via preview screen, and you can hear on the other end. It's like a 10-second delay, but you'll hear everything you're doing and then adjust accordingly.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right, I have just posted the links to all of Sav's amazing tutorials. So you can run in there and grab and copy them. You may be able to save the chat, you may not. Try. If you can, let me know. Somebody just say yes, wave your hand if it's letting you save the chat. Good, excellent. There may be some questions in here that we did not get to, but I'm hoping that, here's one from Eric Gnezda. OBS, does OBS work with Stage It?
Yes, it does. There's a section for Stage It specifically in the in-depth OBS tutorial.
You're awesome. Okay, so then ask Dennis Kingsbury, you have a question about logos and overlays. Do you want to ask that live, sir? I can't see a hand raised. So I'm gonna say maybe email the question. This has been incredible. There's also, let's see, what about virtual audio cables for audio routing? I think that was also answered earlier, right?
Not sure what that question is asking.
Virtual
Virtual
audio
audio
cables. I
cables
think
for-
that might be that virtual
That-
cam, but we're getting a little out of scope.
Well, I think it's also, it could be talking about loopback, which again, there's a loopback section in the in-depth tutorial. I highly recommend looking at that if you're
Yeah.
interested, just because there's not a straightforward tutorial anywhere else.
Yeah.
There really isn't.
Yep. I think this has been incredible. There's 3 little dots in the lower right corner of the chat window. There's just a little button with 3 little dots in it. And if you click on that, you should see at the top of that, Save Chat. And that'll make a little text file that'll probably automatically drop somewhere on your desktop if you're not sure where to find that. But I have also successfully stuck my cursor in there and selected all and copied and pasted. But we will be emailing these to all of you along with a follow-up for a survey. We will also be putting them on our website. So this is going to be available to everybody. I just want, first of all, to say, Sav, do you have any last words that you want to share?
Yeah.
I know you
If anybody needs extra help on this, my email's on all 3 of those tutorials. I've done walkthroughs with people individually, and that's been really cool. If you need me to do it on your computer, we can do it through TeamView, or you can just share your screen. I'll tell you what to do. I've done that in the past. So if you need extra help, just email me.
You are the best. We are so grateful for your time today and for all the work you put into these tutorials and for everything you give of yourself. Everybody click on that gallery view right now and wave your hands, wiggle them loud and clear to show your support for this lovely young woman. And big thanks. I was so enwrapped, I didn't even bother to put the links in about how to support what we're doing here at Farm Virtual Connections, but you can always go to farmvirtualconnections.org and you can find a little help button. If you have any more questions for us or want to hear more about anything, please email us. Do not hesitate. We are so grateful that you support this series. And thanks so much for coming today. This is the weird, awkward part where we click the end button and everybody just disappears. And I'm sad to see you go. But we are grateful and hopefully you will join us soon. Don't forget about our peer group sessions, folks, next week. We love you. Have a great day. Thank you so much, Sav, again. Thank you. Bye, everybody.